students of S.H.I.E.L.D., and welcome to No Man's Podcast. This is episode 23, Fruit of the Earth. I'm Michael, and I'm joined today by...
I'm Matt.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Vincent.
Yay! So, today we're covering the three-part Fruit of the Earth story. It's Batman Shadow of the Bat number 88, Batman number 568, and Detective Comics number 735. And all three issues are written by Greg Rucka, penciled by Dan Jurgens, and inked by Bill Sienkiewicz. This is a Poison Ivy and Clayface-centric story, and a bit of a notable landmark for one or two reasons. So I'm going to just hand it off to Mike. Yeah, Mike's did the first issue.
That is correct. Shadow of the Bat number 88. All three of these issues, by the way, have beautifully painted Glen Orbit covers. We can talk about this one has like Poison Ivy's giant face in the background overlooking a scared Clayface. But Fruit of the Earth Part 1, we start with a flashback on No Man's Land Day 23 outside the north gate of Robinson Park as we see Clayface tearing it down and chasing children through the park as he fights his way through and comes face to face with Poison Ivy, who Clayface lays out a deal that she can make all of the fruits and vegetables, and then they can use the kids to use them to spread throughout the city and make money. And they lean in for a kiss, and then we go off panel as we see Clay splurting onto a child's face, one of the kids' faces, which is basically making it look like it's blood, but we'll get back to that. We then flash forward to No Man's Land Day number 189 inside the clock tower of Oracle as Batman and Robin, which I think this is the first time in like forever that we're going to see Batman and Robin team up, which is really nice. Sitting there with Oracle, uncovering what's exactly going on in Robinson Park, because they know there's children there and they know that Ivy's there and they know that the Penguin knows something is up. So we're going to get another classic Batman breaking down Penguin's door to interrogate him, which is like the third time he's done this now. Penguin hanging out there,
at least
eating some exotic fruit, which is the tip off to Batman as he picks him up. By the way, good continuity catch is that the Penguin is still nursing the crossbow injury that he got from the riot and like the kind of gang war between Two-Face, the Blue Boys, and the Penguin's crew back a few arcs ago. So he's still bandaged up, and as Batman's throwing him around, it starts to bleed again. But he knows from the fruit that something's up in Robinson Park, and Batman's going to go to check it out. Flashback to the Blue Boys and Officer Pettit. They're at and Renee Montoya is they're at a hostage situation standoff, and it goes horribly, horribly wrong when Pettit just fires and kills everyone. And it's come to the point where, like, all right, Pettit has definitely got to go as he assaults Montoya and still lambasts Gordon on the way out. But we'll get back to that story later on. Heading into the park, this is where we see some Batman and Robin team up as they're like kind of traversing their way through like the overgrown park now that's just completely taken over with wilderness as they're fighting their way in. And it's revealed, and like they're going through, and all like these dead bodies of people are strung up as like warning signs all throughout. Batman's managed to crack open a flare, and they go into one of the makeshift bat caves he set up while he was recuperating his back during Prodigal and like the end of Nightfall. And Batman's looking for like this. He's looking for something, which we'll figure out later. But that's where he finds that all the kids in Ivy are like all being captured down there in Clay. And it's like this really, really haunting scene of like, oh, something is definitely like horribly, horribly wrong and terrible down here. But I do want to say the combination of art between Jurgens and Sienkiewicz is almost like a perfect marriage for Batman, because Jurgens has a very classic style. I'm a big fan of Jan Jurgens' art from his work on Superman, but with the dark and like spooky inks that Sienkiewicz is able to bring out, it's the perfect marriage, especially with his use of shadows. So like the scenes where they're traversing through the park are all perfect. It's all very perfect anomalies. The color palette in this is very muted. I noticed, which I think works for the story. The only like bright striking parts we get are really in the clock tower, and then like in Penguin's penthouse, and then like the only other part that takes place during the day in this is with the Blue Boys sequences, and that's like 2 pages. So it's a very, very dark and muted color palette that I think works for the issue as well. I think like some of the only other color there is we get some color off like the police sirens, but I think this is a really good lead in here, and it's a good kind of a haunting image to last on that carries you into Batman. But really, really like this issue. Open it up to you guys.
Yeah, I thought this was a really solid first issue. It's probably my favorite issue of the 3 we're talking about tonight. I've never read anything with Clayface in it before, so this is my introduction to Clayface, and he seems really bad, like a real dickhead, which is not who I thought Clayface was. I thought he was more sympathetic than this. So I don't know if this is weird for his character or if he changes between now and where I know him. I'm not sure. But
Well,
this
the issue
Clayface
is that
seems like
there's
a real
more than one
monster.
Clayface.
What's that?
The issue is that there's more than one Clayface.
Oh my fucking god! Of course there is.
There's like 4.
And they call attention to that in this story too. I think it's
Penguin's the one that points out that it's the one who thinks he's an actor, so that would be Basil Carlo.
but this is the one. I feel like this is mostly the most prominent one, especially for a lot of the adaptations and everything.
Mhm.
And but also this is the one that's usually played off as occasionally sympathetic. This is the one that was like currently on a team with Batman for a stretch.
He was on the little team during Detective Comics under James Tynion, and then he just showed up in the past issue of Batman 81 with Tom King.
And the
Okay.
and we'll kind of I'll kind of touch on other connections to this in it later, but I would say the way that the animated show, the DCAU show, handled Clayface's origin is pretty sympathetic, and that's one of the signature.
It's funny because the animated series used Matt Hagen and not Basil Carlo.
But also he's like in a kind of weird status quo in this era, as we'll get to later. But he's still kind of fun in this mode.
I guess he seems like a real monster, though.
Yeah, there's different takes. There's like this one, and then there's usually he's kind of just always used as like a big brutish thug of another like bigger Batman villain. Like, just for example, I know it's either he's a thug that's just trying to get money, or like the joke. Like for example, in Arkham City, the Joker uses him as his kind of like end game boss level thing.
And like, well, I really like his plan. I like the idea that he's like almost exploiting Poison Ivy because she can grow food, and they obviously need food in No Man's Land. That's a really cool idea. I don't know. So
And then like it's even schemier is he's like, oh yeah, we can use the kids to do it too.
yeah,
He doesn't want to just kill him. He's like, yeah, I'm going to starve them as well.
So Ivy is set up, or we kind of get back to whatever. Bruce has a bunch of caves around the city.
Mhm.
That's set up here. It was like kind of alluded to earlier because obviously the actual like main Batcave is destroyed in Wayne Manor and everything like that. So Bruce has been more mobile, even though we haven't actually spent like as much time seeing that as I was expecting going into No Man's Land.
right.
But it's set up here. He has a bunch of caves and stuff, and he's like, he tells Robin, he's like, I did that when I was gone. But the thing is, the way he talks about it, I'm not certain actually when he's referring to it, because I don't think he's referring, because he says something like, while Dick took over or something like that. So I think this
Yeah.
is,
That
I
would
think
have to be during Prodigal.
yeah, it's referencing all the way back to Prodigal and not his short disappearance at the beginning of No Man's Land, which I think is interesting because at this point, that's 4 to 5 years ago, I believe, at the least.
I don't know. I was assuming it was Nightfall, but I also haven't read Nightfall, so I don't know.
That's what we're talking
Prodigal
about.
happens
Oh,
right
okay.
after Nightfall wraps up. Like Bruce isn't fully like able to be Batman again. He's like, "Hey, I just took down Bane. My back still hurts. Hey, Dick, can you take over for like 12 issues?"
Yeah.
Nightfall is technically like 6 crossovers into one crossover.
Christ.
Because you have Nightfall, Night Quest, Night's End, and then Prodigal, Troika. The 0 hour crossovers are in the middle there, and you can split up, parts of the night stuff even further.
That's such nonsense.
Maybe that should be our next podcast.
Elected at all.
I mean, it's just like Death of Superman. There's
Right, exactly. I think that's nonsense also. So
that's the nature of the game. But I thought that continuity was cool, and it makes sense because the same damn editor has been controlling this entire line for like a decade at this point. I don't really have much else to add on the first issue. Collie, did we miss anything from you? Any additions?
Not really. I agree. The art was great. I loved the combination of Jurgens and Sienkiewicz. What was kind of interesting to me was there's a couple moments, one panel in particular, where Batman to me looked a lot like Michael Keaton in the suit, like specifically the Burton movie version of the bat suit. He is in the Troika suit where it's all black, so it's the basic concept. But I think here it is, like the way his cowl and the ears are shaped. Like I immediately looked at that and I thought of like Batman Returns, what his silhouette looks like in those movies. But yeah, I like that. It's a good look for him. And I forgot to mention him in the beginning going over the credits, but the Glenn Orbeck covers are beautiful as usual. He's become one of my favorite cover artists in this story. One quick nitpick I wanted to point out: I didn't think Poison Ivy had bodies strung up. I thought they were statues because Batman starts saying the names of Roman emperors and interacting with the statues, which is what I think they are. And if you look, one of them is like on a pedestal. So, are the dead bodies and statues, or is it just statues?
No,
one of the statues looks like it doesn't.
I think it's just the statues.
No, that was just some Indiana Jones shit to get into a secret cave. It was unrelated.
But he does reference Caligula.
He does.
Go Google him.
Go to your local library and rent Caligula.
All right, so second issue, 568. Batman is really concerned about the kid's part as he shows up and finds Ivy, which I feel like I was like, when he kept emphasizing that, I was really expecting something, which then we don't get. I was really waiting for Clayface when the eventual confrontation comes, or just Ivy to be like, hey, you have a teenager literally right next to you in a costume, which you're going around, helping you fight people and putting in danger. I mean, that's a common thing, the villains or GCPD or whatever will be like, hey, Batman, his kid army and stuff like that. Which I feel like his emphasis on the kids here, it was totally set up for someone to turn that conversation on him, but it doesn't happen at all. And so we learned that Clayface has enslaved the kids in Ivy. That's in this issue is where we really learn all that. And he's keeping Ivy away from water and sun and feeding her salt, which I think is kind of weird and funny in a dark way. And again, with this kid stuff, and also so that Batman can be alone with his femme fatale, he's like, hey, Robin, go babysit. Takes all the kids away. And while he's trying to figure out how to get prepped when Clayface shows up, and there's like a funny panel where he just is like punching the mud that Ivy's bound in, and he's like, "It's not doing anything." And she's like, "No shit." And we were talking about the art here and the Jurgens Sienkiewicz combo, and there's one page here where essentially the background, it's a great headshot of Batman, and Sienkiewicz is kind of playing with the inks and whatever materials he's using. Honestly, I think in some in a lot of Sienkiewicz stuff. He's even like he toys around with like whiteout and the leader and stuff like that on top of the ink for some of the textures he's able to get away with. And this page is just amazing, and it's tragic, but also great that it's not actually a splash page. It's a splash page, but then you have like 4 to 5 panels additionally that are continuing like actual storytelling on top of it. So Jurgens and Sienkiewicz, they know what they're doing. Even though Jurgens, he can pull out a 4-page fold out splash if he wants to. And the subplot in this issue, which we don't get back to in this arc, is that Huntress, she's a little mad and edgy since she got kicked out of the Bat family, and she's like, I'll do shit myself again. She tries to apprehend Petite because she's heard through the grapevine about this stuff, but ends up siding with him after he's like, yeah, you have a crossbow, and shooting people with a crossbow, it's not really, that doesn't follow Batman's rules. So I guess they're friends now, and I assume that tension may be what leads Batman and Gordon to kind of get back on each other's good sides. It'll be interesting to see how that develops as the GCPD has split into factions. Also, in this scene, and as well some of the kids and others, there are 2 important like terminology things that I think are worth calling out. Petite uses the acronym NML for No Man's Land, which I don't think we've seen that acronym yet in these issues. And then I believe we've seen this one before, but there's lots of mention of Black Monday, which was the evacuation date. And so Clayface lumbers back. He's ready to fight. And this is where we get reminded about his weird status quo stuff, because he like was believed dead, but he was like reforming and hibernating deep underground, if I recall this correctly. And he has like gems and stones on his back now, which somehow give him electricity powers. And
is that what that is?
yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I can't remember precisely what it was. It may have been a full arc. It was something with, he and Mr. Freeze like smushed into one arc way early on. So that was the last time we saw him. And I think that was when they introduced this electricity power thing. But to defeat him, Robin sets off a bunch of explosives, which I guess they're just very careful or lucky that they completely knock Poison Ivy free and splash her into the water and out into the open sun, while also damaging Clayface. And that's where this issue ends, kind of on a cliffhanger, with a nice splash page of Poison Ivy. And before I turn it over to everyone else, I want to, on that page, I want to note as well the Jurgens Sienkiewicz combo, because I think as we get this issue and into the next one, they don't go cheesecakey, but the way they draw and present Poison Ivy, it's a little flirty. She's supposed to be attractive. She's a femme fatale. But to me, even though like 2 panels, she's like sort of straight up naked, it never comes off as kind of gross or gratuitous or anything.
It never seems exploitative.
No.
I agree.
And then, I mean, well, when we get to the next one issue, she's completely covered up. So, but I will say,
Also, she's green now.
Yeah. Okay. I'll dive into that. We were talking about Clayface in the animated series. So as far as I can tell, even though I like tried to triple check this before, as far as I can tell, this arc suddenly Poison Ivy's green. Now I was expecting an explanation, but she just is. I don't think we've seen her before in No Man's Land. She may have been in like some of those like Arkham or Blackgate anthology one shots or something, but she is now green. Otherwise, post-Crisis, and I believe literally the entire time going back to her first appearance, she was always white chick with leave clothing. But now has more greenish skin and is much more like they're kind of leaning way more into her being like an elemental, and she's kind of a bit more of a threat now, or hypothetical threat. She's not exactly presented as a threat in this story. And that was, I guess, lining up with the animated series, and we'll see a tiny bit more of things like that as we go through
what's the cover date on this? This is 99. New Batman Adventures is 97, which is where she's recolored. So
yeah. I don't know. Do you guys have Poison Ivy opinions on that?
I like Poison Ivy. I prefer not green, but I don't really care. I think she looks a lot better here than she did in the New 52, because that New 52 costume she had was straight garbage.
Yeah.
But this is, to me, this is kind of looking like the beginning of the period where Poison Ivy just becomes kind of a pseudo good guy.
Yeah, she's not really a villain in this arc. She's almost an anti-hero, but I'm even reluctant to say that. He's basically a sympathetic character.
Yeah, and it's Ivy and Mr. Freeze that are both, because they're both scientists that are like, well, they're not really bad.
Right.
So I kind of prefer them when they're just kind of, yeah, we're not going to be killing people, but also like we're not like full out members of the Bat family. Like I think Poison Ivy at one point was in the New 52 was like on the Birds of Prey, and I was like, I don't like that. But she's on Gotham City Sirens, and that was cool. But yeah, I would say I don't like how we just defeat Clayface with electricity and water, like you always do. That's the problem with Clayface is you and like also for like Electro, for example, you always have to rely on the okay, how are they going to get water on him, and then shock him with electricity.
How are we going to get Max Dillon wet today?
Yeah, like it comes like, so like your story structure automatically is like, all right, how do I work to this gimmick, which is why I don't like those villains for like heroes that don't have powers. Like I've always kind of imagined that Clayface would be like a much more fun villain to play with Superman than Batman, for rather, just because I feel like Superman might be able to do something else than just always like, just shock him with electricity.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is still good.
And I like the way Poison Ivy deals with him in the next issue, which we'll get to.
Yeah, that's which I'll let you take it away then.
Yeah, are we ready? Okay. So this is the third part of Fruit of the Earth, and at this point, Poison Ivy's wearing her plant gimp suit or whatever it is, and she's real mad. And so she starts growing all these plants that kind of envelop Clayface, and now he is begging for his life in a way very reminiscent of how Poison Ivy herself was begging earlier. So it's sort of like the whole tables are turned or whatever. And the plants that she's growing out of Clayface are absorbing the nutrients out of him. And Batman's like, stop, you're gonna kill him. And the kids all know better. The kids tell Robin, don't worry about it. She doesn't kill people. She's not like that. And so Poison Ivy kisses Clayface, and then he dies. I don't think he's dead because the kid
Kind of
said
melts
he
away.
won't kill him, but he's done. She beats him. And then Batman makes a new deal with her, where she will provide fruit for Gotham City, and she will stay in the garden and not bother people, and she won't bother him, and that's it. So now Gotham has fruit, I guess. The second half of this issue is basically unrelated to the entire story. Two-Face shows up, and I guess he has Renee Montoya now, and he threatens Jim Gordon, and then he leaves, and then they call in Catwoman for help, which it's all set up for, I have to assume, what comes next. But for this story, it feels really out of place, and I wasn't about it. All right, that's it.
Well, you are forgetting one interlude also, where we see this woman giving a contract to a man in the shadows, as then it's revealed that it's Bane.
Well, the question is,
Oh, is that who that is? I didn't know what that.
Yeah.
I didn't. That's Bane.
That's Bane.
I
and
didn't
do you know who
recognize
the
him.
woman is?
No,
I
I don't know.
wasn't able to tell who the woman was. Is it Talia?
No, it's Mercy Graves.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Who the fuck
Which
is
will-
Mercy Graves?
It's Lex Luthor's secretary.
Oh, his robot girl.
Well,
chauffeur,
depends
bodyguard, yeah.
on what iteration of her it is.
I don't think she's a robot.
Yeah,
here.
she's not a robot yet. She's still a person.
She's a
But
robot in the animated series, right?
Nope, person.
Fucking okay. I don't know what I'm talking
That's
about.
Young Justice.
But that'll
Taking Young Justice shoot or something.
eventually way later lead into some stuff. Yeah, I mean this issue they kind of like slap in a bunch of subplot stuff.
That's
Which I guess-
Bane. He looks awful.
Yeah, he's got some weird thing with his haircut.
Yeah, I'm not about it.
Yeah, it's his haircut shaved like that so he can get the tubes into the back of his head.
But I mean it's just the nature of this kind of this mega crossover.
Mhm.
Hey, you gotta put in these teases, and so we basically have a lead to a Catwoman arc, a lead to way off Bane and Lex Luthor stuff, and a lead to Montoya Two-Face stuff. And we only really get told where stuff's going to be in relation to Catwoman. I thought this issue closed it out fine.
Sure.
I just keep wondering why they were hiding what was in the box from Robin.
Yeah, I
It's in the
forgot to mention
box.
that. The box contained vague data about Gotham, which means nothing. They buried the lead on this fucking box for 3 issues, and then it ended up being literally nothing, at least for us as the readers.
Yeah.
So, what was the goddamn point?
I thought it was like going to be like plastic explosives that were like Ivy destroyed because she didn't want to mess with their plants, or for Batman if he wanted to double cross her. But yeah, I have no idea what it is or like why you'd have to hide Robin from it.
Right.
See, when I first saw the box, my quick assumption, which is not relevant at all to No Man's Land, was that it was kryptonite something.
That was also my assumption. So it was kryptonite, but it's not. It's literally nothing. It's
Well,
data on Gotham. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Also, I think this issue opens really well, where it's like basically Ivy has her like Iron Man suit up moment,
Mhm.
where she armors up, and it's actually kind of cool. I think it's cool, and her look, it's like a little like odd, like BDSM inspired, while at the same time kind of not showing any skin whatsoever.
Right. It doesn't feel, and granted, I'm not exactly an expert, but it doesn't feel to me exploitative at all. It feels like, I don't know.
But
I like that it's got the thorns and the vines all over it too, so like you can't like run up and like hit her.
Yeah.
But I thought the scene was cool, and it ends up looking cool. And she's all ready to fight Clayface, but then Batman like freezes his arm for a second and just bails the two of them out of there. And then she gets her actual quote unquote fight with him and just wrecks him.
She destroys him, which I really enjoyed. That was cathartic.
But initially, the first few pages, I felt like, oh, like Batman kind of just like delayed the fight. I was like, that was a little unsatisfying, and then it became satisfying.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to see Batman make this deal again. I mean, he had the deal where he took over, what was it, ventriloquist turf, I think?
Yeah.
So it's slightly different kind of setup with these kids and Ivy, but it's interesting to see, you know, Batman. He really does have to like figure out sort of the geopolitics of No Man's Land.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would say I mean, I guess Ivy kind of got the rough part of the deal because she's just giving away her resources and everything so that Batman won't come punch her. But I don't think she has a huge problem with that. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, both of them kind of come out all right from the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's mostly what I have to say here.
Ultimately, at the end of the story. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
I thought the art was a little bit rough here. It looked just a tad bit rushed and unfinished compared to the other two issues, but still good.
Yeah. Ultimately, I come out of the story liking Poison Ivy that more than I did before, and liking Clayface just about the same, which is whatever. But I think Poison Ivy seems pretty cool.
Yeah, she's got like I'm not going to remotely say she has a huge fan base, but Ivy is one of those characters that has a very cult fan base.
Well, she has a huge fan base because of Harley.
Yeah, well, yeah, but there's also like a niche spin-off fan base that are more into Ivy than Harley. And because she's, as we've said, like sometimes she's way more sympathetic and sometimes like her characterization and usage is all over the place. Like these fans go crazy sometimes. Like Tom King had a Poison Ivy arc way back, and I know the Poison Ivy fans were like going ape shit on him. And then I'm not sure which movie it was, but there was an animated movie where she goes like very villainous, and the Poison Ivy tiny fan base was going insane. And then going back to the appearance thing, I'm okay on the green skin, but the current post Heroes in Crisis thing, where she's like green muscle without skin, I don't like that look at all.
I think it's a cool look. So
did she ever end up becoming Swamp Thing? What happened with that?
No, it was just rumor.
But it didn't happen.
Or it's just way off. I mean, she's currently in a miniseries with Harley, and
is that even a continuity?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think so. And the whole Swamp Thing is no longer the Avatar, and there has to be a replacement. I believe that's still an ongoing tease in Justice League Dark.
Interesting.
So I mean, that's this. I will say we are going to see, based on the way I organize things, we are going to see Poison Ivy in the next episode of this show, and it will be, at least on the comic book page, the start of a major relationship for Poison Ivy, because we are
Harley
reading.
Quinn?
Yes, we are reading it's often forgotten that it's basically a straight up No Man's Land tie-in, but we are reading the first main continuity appearance of Harley Quinn in the Batman Harley Quinn one shot, which has is it a Ballin cover or an Alex Ross cover? I think it's Alex Ross.
It's an Alex Ross cover.
Which Suicide Squad homaged the cover. I think that was the only shot in Suicide Squad of Harley in her animated series traditional costume.
Yeah, it was the only shot of her in it because then they have her pick it up and throw it on the ground later in the movie.
God, I hate that movie. I don't even care about any of the characters in it, and I still hate it. Fucking whatever. Go ahead.
But release the Snyder Cut. Release it.
The Snyder Cut of Suicide Squad?
Yeah. There's dozens of us.
I believe. I'm not sure if that'll be the last time we see Ivy within No Man's Land. This Harley Quinn thing. We might again, but otherwise, the next major appearance of Ivy that I know is during Greg Rucka's Evolution run on Detective Comics after No Man's Land. And we really have no reason to read that. We're going to read like the first arc, which doesn't really have much to do with No Man's Land. But maybe if we really, really like it, we'll just kind of keep reading some post No Man's Land Batman, but probably not.
I'm just going to say, we're not going to get to the Two-Face Montoya stuff for like until after No Man's Land is over.
Well, no. I mean, there's a next direct.
Yeah. But the fallout of that isn't until like Gotham Central.
But that'll come back around. But
Really?
and the Ivy thing in Rucka's run that I'm talking about, it does pick up from the status quo, where she's still in Robinson Park and with the kids, and there's like a government standoff where the government's like, "Hey, no man's land is over, and there's a bunch of homeless orphan kids that you just have in the park, and you won't let anyone stroll through the park," or something like that. That's my understanding.
That sounds great, actually.
And then in a few episodes, we'll get to the Catwoman arc, which is teased here. And when we get to that, there's some Catwoman stuff to talk about.
How about Clayface?
I'm not certain. I didn't think to double check whether we see him again. He does have a seemingly final kind of showing here.
Yeah. Is he dead? Because they explicitly say he's not going to kill him, and then sure fucking looks like he kills him.
Yeah. But again, as far as I know, before No Man's Land, he was totally dead. And then they gave him this gemstone electricity thing. So,
Okay.
but the nature of Clayface's powers is like, you can bullshit your way out of the corner no matter what.
Right.
Like
Sandman.
Yeah. But overall thoughts, I'd say all of us pretty much like this. I mean, Matt said he's now intrigued by Poison Ivy.
I am.
I thought Clayface, he's still kind of fun in the role he plays.
Sure.
And there's some interesting things to think about as far as how Ivy is handling those kids and the status quo of No Man's Land. Also, this arc does note that we are moving officially into summer, which is an interesting kind of background status quo thing, which we've occasionally been tracking. We were taking note during while it was winter, when it was snowing in certain books and etc.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if they play into summer. I mean, there's definitely ways that you could dive into that in this like screwed up infrastructure fucked status quo.
Absolutely.
So that is this next episode. It's actually kind of sort of a grab bag. We're doing the Harley Quinn, but then it's also going to be like a Justice League tie-in, and I think possibly a Chronicles issue.
You're really on doing these Nightwing issues that are in Volume 2.
Yeah, the Nightwing will then. So we're going to do the Harley grab bag, then we're going to do Nightwing, then we're going to do Catwoman. And that'll finish for those reading and trade No Man's Land Volume 2.
Okay.
Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, sure seems like it.
So thanks for watching this episode, and tune in next time, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.